Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with a continuation of our spring preview. And yes, we do realize that spring football is already two practices in, probably three by the time you see this. Uh, we, we we just wanted to try things a little bit differently this year. Last year we got stuck with some late information as we rolled these videos out. So we wanted to make sure we were kind of up to date with what's going on through spring the best we can with each position. So it's going to be more of a spring series more than a spring preview. So today we're going to talk about the wide receivers. You're going to get to see Trey's lovely face on another video this week. Not this one. Sorry about that. Just the monotone me and Kev.
Yeah,
No big deal.
just football talk.
Yeah, just straight football
None
talk.
of those Doritos talk.
Doritos and ball trimmers that Trey likes to talk about all the time. But anyway, yeah. So we're going to look at the receivers. We're going to look at the tight ends. We're going to kind of lump them together here. We weren't sure where to include tight ends, but decided to go with the wide receivers. It's probably the most natural fit for them. So, a lot of new faces, a lot of old faces, a lot of names in general in the wide receiver room. Kev, you got any thoughts on this receiving room just kind of early?
Yeah, so let's just go ahead and preemptively go to the chalkboard because I know
Ooh, I
it'll
love a good
probably
chalkboard.
probably come up more often than not. So
Most likely.
the wide receiver room was probably the weakest room. Um, if not on the team, it was the weakest room on the offense last year. They tried to bring in Andrew Parchment to revitalize things. I think he didn't pan out um, the way they were hoping, and so there was a lot of struggles there, and I think a lot of those struggles got pinned on the quarterback situation, which at times wasn't good, but there wasn't a ton to work with, and you see that in how they had addressed the transfer portal, bringing in several names, several trying to revitalize that room, trying to do something there. So yeah, what are your thoughts on kind of where the roster stands pre-spring?
Yeah, I think that I think they're throwing bodies at the problem. I think that they know that A, there was a lack of variety at their position. B, there's a lack of just talent in general at the position. Man coverage was a thing that they couldn't defeat last year. I know Ron Dugans has talked about it a little bit when discussing Winston Wright Jr. this offseason. It's something that they've got to be able to beat and win one-on-one situations. It really is a staple of Mike Norvell offense, right? I mean, we're going to talk about it a little bit more in depth here as we go along, but a staple of Mike Norvell offenses is a one-on-one on the backside, winning a back shoulder or winning deep down the field. Think of the number of instances where we saw the slot fade come into play last year uh, out of some trips and some different doubles formations. It really was a core play for them, a core concept for them, and they really just weren't able to execute it because they weren't athletic enough and they weren't physical enough when they did have opportunities. We highlighted a lot of those last year. Kev's done multiple videos on Mike Norvell's offense. You'll be able to see some of those in the description if you want to go check those out. Um, yeah, so I think that they're throwing numbers at the problem. So far, so good on some of the different guys that they brought in, some of the transfers, and we'll get to those names in a minute. I think it was wise to go out and ultimately they ended up with four transfers. Hell, I'd go get a fifth if the right guy came along in the post spring portal season. I just don't think. I think in today's game, as sad as it is for me to say, being able to throw the football vertically, being able to throw the ball intermediate, being able to throw the ball short with screen game is really just kind of where you've got to win football games anymore. And there wasn't enough talent last year to do that. I think they've started to kind of fix that problem, but it's one they've got to continue to work at.
Yeah, and so kind of we talked about this in the football preview that we did last week, and
Yep.
what Norvell likes to do is he likes to be vertical, and what we mean by that is a lot of his passing concepts are really going to focus on going deep, either with isolating a guy on the backside of trips or loading the box some other way. So you'll see them load the box with maybe 21 or 20 personnel to try to get the safety to kind of get in the box and get this one-on-one look on the outside, or alternatively they'll load one side of the field and try to ISO a wide receiver on maybe a safety or a linebacker. Florida State didn't win these matchups as much as you'd like to see. I think a lot of this verticality comes from Norvell was a wide receiver. He's a wing T guy originally, a spread T, I guess you would call that kind of guy.
Yeah, sure.
Likes to keep the passing game simple. To kind of show you, I got a couple clips of what that might look like here. So here is this is 20 personnel. So you got 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers, I guess. And then this guy, you could kind of consider this 21 personnel because he's kind of acting as a wing back here. As he's going in motion, they snap the ball. But effectively what this is doing is you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9 and there's 2 people back here. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the eyes on the backfield, focus on Jordan Travis's legs in the running game, and ISO this man matchup on the backside. He likes to do this a lot. Hopefully at the end of spring, I'll have a video that really focuses on this. And they just didn't win this matchup as much as a successful Mike Norvell offense would.
Yep.
Now that was a pretty good look, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What's nice is with the motion, you created the rotation in with the safeties to get that one-on-one on the backside. I mean, this is a ball that you got to end up catching. They went out and got a couple bigger body guys and Deuce Spann and Johnny Wilson. And again, we'll get to some of these names a little bit more in a minute. But you went out and got a couple bigger body guys that you hope are going to be able to go up and win those balls, which is important because that was a 50-50 ball. You schemed open that shot play vertically by getting with the motion, getting rotation to the safeties. And, ultimately you dropped the ball that really should have been caught.
And here's another good example. There's probably endless ones, but this is probably my favorite one. This is what I think about when I think about kind of our offensive struggles.
It's a Jacksonville State.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, I've got that covered for a reason. So you got man free here. So man across the board. They're kind of playing
slot
loose.
Fade. Here we go.
He's playing kind of rat, robber, whatever you want to call it. And there's a deep safety, and you've got slot fade here. So against Jacksonville State, look at the one up here. Against Jacksonville State, you should be able to win this game. My connection's unstable. Or I guess down here. You should be able to win this, right? That shouldn't be a play that you're losing out on. So it happens down here. You've got your slot receiver, one of the guys that you have to trust, lined up on a guy that's probably a safety here. A safety body. A Jacksonville State safety body. You have to be able to win this.
Yeah, we saw time and time again in the film review of this game where they just our slot guys just got out physicaled at the point of
here's another
being
example.
being able to break open. We talked about it with Pokey a lot. I mean, that's you're just getting worked there. That's Keyshawn Helton who's back for another year and had a couple nice days of spring ball already, but he was your number one at times last year. He was the primary go-to in some of these slot fade concepts. Now they changed that and went to Ja'Kai Douglas, who's a little thicker and a little speedier down the field as far as his vertical speed.
This is Douglas running it.
Yeah, it's a big difference. He sets it up better. He plays through the contact much better.
Yep, and he gets open on that same play, same route concept, literally
against a better player.
Against a Miami, look at the difference in wide receiver it makes for a quarterback versus this. No offense to Wilson here, but or Helton is this? Yeah, Helton. But it's the same play against a different better competition. So having personnel there matters, and the coaching staff knows.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And
so good.
I was gonna say there's one guy, Pittman, that is a very similar build to Douglas. So I think that's kind of what they're looking for there.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're looking for that physical. But then you go, all right, so let's get into the names. So let's I don't know if you want to turn on, I don't know if you included the Jordan Travis highlight just because that was the easiest way to find a lot of passing clips, obviously, with a bit of his running mixed in. But we thought it would be good filler for the background and an opportunity for us to point out some different things as we discuss some of the names. Well,
Yeah,
let's
I'll
get
get
into
that
the
load up.
names. All right.
You go ahead and
So yeah, so I mean, so obviously the number one name, coming in was Winston Wright Jr., transfer out of West Virginia. Um, yeah, we talked about the size. I mean, Douglas is probably a 5'9", a buck 80. Wright's probably 5'10", a buck 80, somewhere around there. I think that's what he's listed at. He, was a big time player for West Virginia. Now, obviously, are they still an air raid attack this past year? I know they were previously under the Holgerson regime, but
yeah, there's still a lot of the nuts and bolts of the air raid there.
so I mean, this is going to be a bit of a culture shock for Wright coming into Florida State because obviously, while we know that Florida State runs mesh, and there are some air raid concepts in all passing game anymore, um, it's going to be different. There's not going to be as much space. He's going to have to beat man to man because the ACC is going to show more man to man than what the Big 12 was, which is what the conference he was in at West Virginia. So he's going to have to show that he can do some of this physical stuff that we talked about, like you're going to see Ja'Kai Douglas do here
Man, I don't
again.
know. It's like at the beginning of the season they went to Douglas, at the end of the season they went to Douglas, and there were some points in the middle where you're just like, "Where's this
Yeah,
kid?"
he disappeared. He looks different running around out there, which is nice. So Winston Wright Jr. is going to come in. He's going to play a role in the slot out of West Virginia. You mentioned Micah Pittman. Micah Pittman's a player coming over from Oregon. Um, I don't think he's as good as Winston Wright Jr. I'm not sure he's as good as Ja'Kai Douglas, but he's going to come in. He's going to fill a big need at punt return position. He's going to ultimately line up in the slot, but I think he's a guy you can probably move around a little bit. I think he's a guy that you're going to look at as a game plan type player. You're going to find ways to move him around the formation, throw different screens to him. We know that the staple play in their offense is that triple option look, which we know it's not triple option, but we call it that for just ease of
Right.
coming up with a name. Um,
But yeah, big screen, big. You
yeah,
gotta be able to block.
yeah. You put two bigger bodies out there for him, or Malik McLean and a Johnny Wilson out in front of him, and get the ball out to him, and you let him just be a punt returner out there, a wide receiver. You're talking about big chunk plays. And that's what this offense is predicated on with a passing game. Built off to complement the run game, and they really will complement each other. Throwing the ball to set up some of the running stuff that they want to do. Um, but trying to defend.
So here's blocking. And they
Yeah,
do a good job. The one thing Dugans does well is gets his
guys to block.
guys to block. I have criticisms about route running and catching of the receiving core, but blocking is something they tend to be pretty strong at.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, so some of these trip sets that they like to run, putting
Quad
Pittman.
sets.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, think of Pittman in a role right there. With a Johnny Wilson out there, who we're going to mention here in a minute, Malik McLean, Ja'Kai Douglas, or Keyshawn Helton there. You start to see the ability to have some mismatches, which is nice. It's just something they lacked last year. So just continuing on the names, obviously Johnny Wilson's a name that if you've been following spring ball so far, and if you followed us, you know that we thought highly of him coming out of
Yeah.
Arizona State. We mentioned it in our breakdown video of him. Um, you can go back and find that on the channel. That we thought he was a big body guy that was going to come in here, and if he could catch the ball consistently, had the opportunity to be a good player. I don't think he's got the potential to be an elite receiver. I think he's got some problems though for a defense. As a 6'7" body who can block as well as he could, and I think he was one of the top rated blockers in the nation last year at the wide receiver position. Yeah, I mean, you got any thoughts on a big time player like that, Johnny Wilson?
Yeah, I think what Johnny Wilson does is pretty unique. So let me go back to kind of the blackboard here, but So now we're talking. We've moved to tight end. Johnny Wilson's kind of our gap. So Johnny Wilson technically is listed as a wide receiver. A lot of people think he's going to play more of a tight end role. Um, I think he's going to be a little bit of a hybrid. They're probably going to move him around
Yep.
to try to find that matchup. Whether it's
Yep.
putting him in line to see if you put him in line, which brings maybe a lighter nickel player into a box,
Mhm.
or you put him out to try to drag a slower linebacker outside of the box. So that's the kind of games you'll see him play. Yeah, I think I agree with you on a just like on flat ground, one on one at the combine. You know, he's not going to be a kind of guy that is going to go high in a draft or anything like that necessarily, but he is the
No.
kind of guy that for a college offense
Mhm.
and for an offensive coordinator planning a game plan makes life harder
Yeah.
for the other team. So,
Yep.
I mean, what do you do with a guy that's 6'7" that can play outside receiver and tight end? Well, it just makes life harder. You saw a couple of years ago, we seem to be the only team in the uh, hey Zach, we seem to be the only team in the state of Florida that was struggling with not having that. And so we, um, sorry, I'm distracted, but having that extra hybrid tight end just makes offense a lot easier and gives you a lot more opportunity to kind of stress the defense and put them in places where they're not necessarily comfortable. And that's what I like about Johnny Wilson. And next to him is Cam McDonald. How do you feel about Cam returning for? He seems to be taking some sort of leadership role, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that Cam's a nice player. I think you know what he is. He's a guy that's going to give you 20 balls, 25 balls, and we'll see with the threats around him kind of becoming better, if that opens him up a little bit more to maybe push into that 25-30 range. He's a nice player, not going to be the best blocker in the world in line, but you can flex him out in your trips and create some mismatches. Um, I think that I think the key with Wilson is going to be finding those mismatches for him, like you said, putting him in as that flex tight end, that inline position, getting him matched up with a Mike Backer in situations, running him down the middle of the field, also working him on that on the little shorter, as opposed to being flanked way out, running him there and doing some different things with him. And then also, trying to throw some vertical balls to him as a split out the X. Um, yeah, and then you talk about Deuce Span. Deuce Span's a guy, 6'5" receiver. He's got 5 career catches, but he's got all the physical tools in the world. He's a guy you're gonna have to develop. We've talked about Ron Dugans. That's maybe not his strength. So we'll see. We'll see where they can what they can get done with him. I think that's going to be a key player for a key player to watch, because he does something that nobody else does, and that's just get deep and can beat man coverage with speed down the field better than anybody else on this roster. And I think that that's really important. When you're talking about a one-on-one situation, if you can get him running that route tree of a vertical, a 9, and then running some sort of comeback and running some back shoulder type stuff, that opens a lot up for the playbook, in my opinion, because now you got to try to help out with the safety, and you're talking about opening a run game up then.
Yeah, I think you'll see Span here a lot if he's able to get to the point where he's in the game.
Yep.
Having someone with his speed just really challenges them to have to take this safety out of the box and really open up the run game.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think you're also going to see potentially it might be the year that Portier steps up. I know there's a lot of talk about him every time spring rolls around.
Darian Williamson.
Darren Williamson had a better season than a lot of people were expecting last season.
Yep.
So I think you'll see some of the younger guys start to come up along with this, and hopefully so the transfers plus the young guys together kind of
Yeah.
make the whole unit competent unit that you can
Mhm.
kind of play with and make a game
Yeah.
plan
Yeah.
around.
And we've mentioned Keyshawn Helton. We mentioned Pokey Wilson, who are veteran guys who maybe are going to can flourish as your 5 or your 6 role as a receiver, because you're going to rotate 7, 8 guys if you can. One guy that we haven't mentioned yet is Malik McLean, true sophomore coming back this year. I expect him to step up and into your number one position.
Yeah.
Being your number one receiver that you can run at that X. That's where I kind of think he's going to start out at, is at that boundary X.
Yep.
And let him go back there and be a big boy, because he's 6'4", 190 pounds, got the wheels to get open down the field. He's what you're hoping Span will develop into also.
Yeah, Span will probably start here if he's getting on the field. So this guy just kind of runs off.
Yep.
Clear coverage. Lot of times.
Yep. Yeah. So McLean, we're going to see. So far, so good of reports out of spring ball. He's stepping up. He's running some slants and catching the ball and being physical. He's getting deep down the field and playing the ball well. He's just a guy. He's a young kid that needed to develop. So we're going to see where he's at. Overall, Kev, what are your thoughts on the kind of wrap this receiver position up?
Yeah, between receivers and tight ends, there's Trey joining us as well. Between receivers and tight ends, I think they did a good job of going to the transfer portal, making this group maybe not the weakest group on the team anymore. So addressed a weakness that I think we all saw watching film last year, and I'm excited to see what some of these new kids kind of bring to the table in spring.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm there with you. We're going to continue our position previews throughout the season. Sorry for the guys dropping in. We've got a little interview with Zach Blostein coming up.
Should have given him a different link.
Yeah, that you guys can look forward to. It's obviously going to be a different video, but just trying to knock some things out here. So, that's a receiver position. That's a wrap on it. Tight end names. Brian Courtney's a guy that's flashing a little bit early in practice. It's the tight end position. A bunch of walk-ons that, in my opinion, are guys you don't want to be playing a lot. Preston Daniel, Wyatt Rector, nice players, but
your boy
guys
Jackson
that you don't
West.
want to. Yeah, Jackson West is a guy, physical, nasty demeanor. He's got to grow up. They got to get him ready to play. The tight end position hasn't been as big of a factor yet for this offense as we kind of thought coming in, but some of that's been what they've had talent wise. We'll see. Cam McDonald's going to be a guy they're going to flex out. I would expect to see Jackson West be a guy that plays a little more in line. We talked about Johnny Wilson. We think he'll play a little bit of a hybrid role. Brian Courtney's probably a year away, but athletically he's flashing, which is good. Preston Daniel will obviously be a guy that they look to block, having a blocking role. Wyatt Rector, how do
we go the full video without talking Wyatt Rector?
Yeah, whole Wyatt Rector. Hope he gets a couple quarterback sneaks this year. But just to put a bow on it, in general, I think Kevin and I agree that the wide receiver position's in a much better spot than it was last year. And I think that's the one that we really wanted to focus on the most, because it's the one that, I think makes or breaks this offense for the 22 season.
Yep.
I think it's going to make or break the offense for them. If these guys can develop and they can get some symmetry and, get Jordan getting the passing game opened up, getting some help from these wide receivers, it's going to do wonders for them. The tight ends will have a role. And Trey, wrap us up, Trey. Send us out on top, Trey. Say goodbye to the people. Say goodbye to the people, Trey.
Bye, people.